right, so obviously a huge week in your career after last week's announcement. I mean, you know where you're racing next year. I mean, just for someone like you, how big of a feeling is that alone to know what next year holds for you?
Yeah, it makes going to sleep at night way easier, to say the least. Incredibly fortunate to know that I have the plan set before me for what I'm doing next year, not only for myself, but for my family and just for my personal life, right? And whenever you leave the racetrack on weekends, this time of the year, it's always like you're always scrounging trying to figure out, how to keep this going this effectively, and this is your task at hand, but you can't just ignore the fact that, hey, you got to figure out how to have a job next year. So extremely thankful to know that we got that worked out and that I'm able to make the steps to the Cup level and do it with a team that I grew up just raving about. RCR was my team growing up, Daniel Hemric. To know that I get to go race at the highest form of motorsports and call Richard my boss next year has been pretty special.
Yeah, what was the congratulations like? I mean, did anyone kind of reach out to you? Because obviously you're pretty popular with fans when it comes to your upbringing, but when it came to drivers, what was really the reaction from the garage?
It was just cool, right? I mean, you have so many people that maybe you haven't heard from in a long time, people that you thought maybe you don't even follow your career anymore, and you get a text from them. And I told my wife last night, I said, I still got 160 text messages that I haven't even got to reply to yet. So I will reply to everybody. It's just a matter of going through the craziness and good craziness of what making an announcement like that brings. And it's just incredible to see everybody kind of embody the situation and or more so embrace the situation of what I've been able to do. And it's because of the support of those folks that have reached out and congratulated myself and my family. It's having those people's support that's made this deal even that much better.
Yeah, you spent a couple years in trucks, a couple years here. A lot of guys get to Cup a little earlier. Did it seem like it took a while for you, or did this time kind of fly by for you?
I think time's kind of flown by on the national series kind of things. Those super late model nights and short track racing, all the way from go-karts, bandos, legend cars, modifieds, all this stuff. Getting to this point, that's what it felt like it took forever. And but at the end of the day, it was just. I know everybody says, did you have a set timeline? Did you know when you wanted to get there? What was the goal? I was like, for me, it was just always knowing that if I was doing everything I could, I could live with that. And doing just that exact thing, doing everything I could, just happened to make one door open when the next one closed and led to the next opportunity and so on and so forth. And I feel like it's incredibly humbling to see everything come full circle at this time in my life, and at a time where I feel like a lot of guys that maybe get a chance to go to that Cup level when they're really, really young, maybe tell you that they don't appreciate it when they get it that early. And I promise you, standing here at 27 years old, knowing what I've put in, what so many others have put in, what my wife, my family have put in to allow me to have opportunities, I appreciate it that much more, having it take the time that it took.
Yeah. I know, just speaking for me, if I were to be picked up by, say, ESPN or someone big, it would make me appreciate the smaller outlets. For you, when you go to the Cup Series, knowing that you're in the Xfinity Series right now and what this series did for you these last couple of years, does really up your appreciation for what this series really did for you? And same thing with trucks. Yeah,
I mean, and even way past that, all the way back to short track racing, period. I think about 5 or 6 key moments, before I ever got in trucks that were huge stepping stones for me to get to the truck level. So the appreciation I have for short track racing from the local divisions, from the local level, is what made opportunity for me to be standing here today. So I promise you, nobody's got a bigger appreciation than I do for that whole scheme of what it takes and what it takes for people to take chances on you. Different owners that shouldn't give a kid from Kannapolis that didn't have much of a family heritage of racing or none of that stuff a chance, and they did. And that started at the local level, and that progressed to the trucks and the Xfinity Series. So yeah, I'll always go to bat for any level of below the Cup Series and tell them that they're the sole reason that I was able to get the shot.
Yeah, a lot of challenges obviously on your head for next year. What challenge do you anticipate happening? I mean, you got a couple Cup starts this year already. Does that kind of really set your mind to what's really on the table for next year?
A little bit yes, and a little bit no. I think with the announcements this past week of the rule changes and the package changes and everything that all the race teams and drivers are going to have in front of them, I think it's just going to make that transition maybe, I don't want to say easier because none of it's going to be easy, but it's going to make it more normal to what the Xfinity cars have driven like in the past for myself. So that side of it, I see opportunity. I see opportunity for everybody to be closer to the same playing field. That's going to bring the field tighter, and when you do that, it brings the drivers tighter as well. So I almost wish I got 1 year in the package way it is now, just to say, hey, I felt that. I felt the more horsepower, the low downforce, and all that stuff on the other side of it. I think the transition for timing in my life and timing of what I've been driving for the past 2 to 3 years, it's going to be a good transition for me and to allow me to maximize myself and not have to worry about as much of the dynamics of how different the race cars are from Xfinity to Cup.
Yeah, Xfinity ran it a few times. It's going to be, slightly different, obviously different cars, different tracks, but how'd you really think about it? It ran at Michigan, Indy, Pocono?
Yeah, I said I was pretty vocal about it after Indy that I thought, I thought there were so many good things about it, and eventually, though, by the time you get through a 200-plus mile race, that the cream rises to the top, and at that point it became frustrating because everybody did become equal. That's what was a little bit interesting for me and actually exciting for me to see that with the packages and the minor changes they made on the Cup side was hopefully allow some of those changes to allow you to maybe make up for some of that when you get packed up with probably the 5, 6, or top 10 best cars in the series near the end of these races. So I thought the package itself, though, did what it's supposed to. It made for way closer racing. It made for way tighter battles, way more lead changes. And when you have all that stuff, it's exciting to see that that the fans engage in that, and that's something that I know I'm happy to be a part of this era of the sport, is just getting the fans engaged and be able to give them a feeling like the series and the drivers and everybody running NASCAR as a whole are doing everything we can to put on the best show for them, and going to that package did that for sure.
Yeah, and not like you need another incentive to want to win, but obviously next year it's going to be tougher to win than ever for you, and having these last 4 or 5 races here, how much of a bigger factor does it add to you to get to victory lane during these last few races?
It doesn't change my drive or my desire, at all to win races, but I will say that before you're winning to say, hey, I can do this, or you have to win because your life's depending on it. And that's still the way I approach it. But I also know if I'm attacking and pushing, that I'm in a situation to where it gives me some I guess comfortability knowing that no matter how I attack or if we do it or not, that everybody's giving their all, and I'm secure enough to know that I'm going into next year. So it's good to have that in my back pocket and know that we can just be aggressive and attack whatever it is in front of us every given weekend to try to win races before I make that move. Yeah,
you talked about appreciation a little bit earlier, and I think of someone like William Byron when it talks to somebody who came in really quick and he won everything. I mean, he won as many races as you can. You're coming in with a completely different mindset and just a different background. Not having, I'm not going to say your ego stroked or anything. You seem to be a really humble driver. You've gone through a lot of losses in this past year. I mean, how does that really affect you when it comes comparing you to someone who came in winning at everything, and then the Cup Series just hits them so hard?
Yeah, I feel like just the ebbs and flows of the box I checked for a sport that I was going to play in. And, I have been successful. I've won races. I've done it at every level following, getting to the Truck Series. But also through those times of doing it as long as I did, even from the super late models and down, that when you win races, there's also times where you go through strikes where you don't. And when you don't, that's what builds your character and builds you to where you can accept years like I've had this year where you've been so close and not being able to kind of knock one out of the park. And I just appreciate that. And how I've worked closely with William in the past. Heck, he drove for me at one point, and I was involved with him. And you're right, he was in something for his path and what they wanted to accomplish. He was in, and he'll tell you, he was in the best possible situation, and he made the most of it. He won races right out the gate, and he never really was even around to see the thing have a downfall, so to say. And I stand here with pride knowing that I've been able to withstand all that stuff and still be standing here with a shot next year.
And final question, working with Austin Dillon next year, I mean, you've been able to work with him on this side of the garage for quite a bit now, so I feel like you kind of have a little bit of a head start, when it comes to working with your driver, as opposed to someone completely new.
Yeah, Austin and I feel like we've kind of embodied the teamwork side of it ever since I got into RCR's Xfinity cars, and our relationship goes way further back from us kids growing up racing together. So it's not like we're jumping all in trying to figure each other out or any of that stuff, or I'm not trying to figure out the race team or the race guys. That was a big part of the decision to be able to stay here, because this place feels like family to me, and it is family to me. So to know that I can have a teammate in Austin, somebody who's shown he can make the most of any opportunity, get the most out of the race cars, and be successful on the way, that's a huge thing to have on my side as I approach the Cup schedule. There's going to be so many different things for me, and so many ups and downs along the way of emotions, and being able to lean on him, not only from the racetrack side of things, but from the personal life. How do you balance all that stuff? How do you go through the schedule that it is, away from the racetrack, to make sure you're doing the things you got to do for yourself to keep yourself healthy and ready to flip that switch when it does come race weekend. So I'm excited to go through the journey. I know it's going to be just that, and it's going to be a fun one.
When did you first meet him? You said like.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I was at Austin and Ty's very first race when they came to race Bandoleros. I was trying to figure out why I couldn't be number 3 anymore, but then it became pretty clear to me. No, but it's something that being at the racetrack together, that we all became pretty good friends, and all the way back to, I can remember us all having sleepovers and talking about, man, what would it be like to race in the Cup Series one day? And now to have those talks, and fast forward from kids, I'd be lying to you, 10, 11, 12 years old to now, it's mind-boggling, but it's incredibly humbling for all of us. I can promise you that.
Absolutely. Yeah, great stories. Yeah, appreciate your time, Daniel.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Thanks, sir.